So a couple of days ago, NTE dropped a special preview, basically a deep dive into everything they've updated, worked on, and what the game looks like right now. And since this is a game I definitely consider playing and maybe even covering here on the channel, I made sure to do my due diligence and go through every detail to figure out if it's actually worth the hype. There's been a lot of buzz online about how awesome it is, especially around features it brings to the table that other games just don't. So in this video, we're diving into that live stream, or at least the highlights, to break it all down and see what the game is really about. So if you're into this kind of content, make sure to like the video, leave a comment if you've already watched the live stream, tell me if you think it's wild or just overhyped. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button to miss out on any of my future videos. Alright, let's get into it. So in case you're not familiar, NTE, or Neverless to Everness, is a supernatural urban open world gacha game created by Nota Studios. Now if that name rings a bell, it's because they're the same team behind Tower of Fantasy, so yeah, naturally there's a bit of hesitation when it comes to NTE. But based on what we've seen so far, this looks like a major step up. There's a lot going on already, especially in what they're showing off in these previews. Anyway, the structure is pretty familiar to what you've played in other gacha games. Genshin has the Traveler, Wuthering Waves has the Rover, and NTE has the Appraiser. The idea is that the Appraiser goes around solving problems throughout Hitherro, which is the world of NTE, and that's the core setup. Now, about 9 months ago, NTE dropped its first gameplay trailer. The trailer was basically them exploring the world, interacting with environments, getting into battles, just a general showcase of how the game plays. And personally, that's when I first noticed what I think is one of the biggest issues the game had back then. I've said this before in a previous video, but while other games look like PC games that you could play on your mobile phone, NTE looked like a mobile game that was running on a PC. The graphics were just mid, not terrible, but definitely not impressive. Nothing about it really got you hyped or made you feel like, yeah, I need to play this. But in this latest review, that's changed. The very thing that they showed us was a huge graphics upgrade, and they absolutely delivered. The environment is sharper, the lighting is better, textures are richer, everything looks way more polished, and honestly, I can proudly say that NTE looks like a proper PC game. It is visually appealing, the world feels immersive, and it finally looks like a place you'd actually want to explore and spend time in. So yeah, compared to what we saw 9 months ago, this is a massive W for NTE. Along with the graphics update, there's also been a solid improvement in how you interact with the overworld. One feature they highlighted in the preview is your ability as the player to manipulate the snow. And I don't mean waiting for it to snow naturally. You can literally trigger snowfall whenever you want. It doesn't matter what time of day or weather conditions. If you want to snow, boom, it starts snowing. And I think that's such a cool feature. Now, changing the time of day in a game isn't new. Switching from day to night is something we have seen a lot. But being able to control the weather itself, specifically snow, that's pretty rare. And what makes it even better is how the world reacts to it. You see, it's not just cosmetics. NPCs actually respond. They cover their heads, move faster, and there's this sense of urgency around them when the snow kicks in. It adds a subtle layer of immersion that really pulls you into the world. And the little details even go further, like when you walk through the snow, it leaves behind the trail. And when you're driving, there are translucent snow particles trailing your vehicle. The way the snow physically interacts with the environment just feels really polished and thoughtful. It's a small touch, but it makes a big difference. Now, something I was really hoping to see, but unfortunately they did not show, was how the snow actually affects combat. Like sure, it looks amazing, but does it do anything in battle? Does it affect enemies, change your playstyle, give you any kind of advantage or disadvantage? Right now, it seems purely aesthetic, and don't get me wrong, it's beautiful, but in games, especially over time, visuals alone can get old. If they really want this snow mechanic to stand out, it needs to serve more than just a visual purpose. I was expecting to see how triggering snowfall might impact exploration, visibility, or enemy behavior, whether it slows movements, weakens certain attacks, or even unlocks specific environmental interactions. That's the kind of depth I was hoping for. Now, since they mentioned that the snow ability comes after a mission, I really hope that once the full game is out, there is more to it than just the aesthetics. A feature like that deserves some meaningful gameplay impact. All in all, the snow mechanic is a nice touch. I really appreciate how the NPC don't just ignore it, they actually react, which makes the world feel more alive. That kind of detail shows effort, and it really elevates the whole system. Now, moving on to the next big topic, the characters. See, if we flash back to the gameplay trailer from 9 months ago, the characters, like the world, were just okay. Not terrible, not badly designed, but it felt kind of lifeless. The same way the environment felt dull and disconnected, the characters didn't really pop either. But in this new preview, just like with the world, they've clearly put in the work. The characters now look much better, they match the upgraded visuals of the environment, and they feel like they actually belong in the world. The lighting hits them better, their details are sharper, and overall they just look right. But of course, that brings us to the real question. Has the gameplay itself improved? And I'm happy to answer that there's been a clear improvement in combat. See, one of the things I noticed was the addition of perfect dodges and counters. That was something completely missing in the earlier gameplay trailer, which always struck me as odd. I mean, adding mechanics like parries and perfect perfect dodges is a no-brainer. They only make your game better, so it was strange that they weren't there before, but now they're in, and they make a huge difference. As you'd expect, the combat looks and feels much better. It's smoother, more responsive, and just more satisfying overall. But beyond that, they've also added some really cool mechanics tied to specific characters. There's one character in particular who can manipulate time, and it's not just a flashy battle move, she can actually freeze time outside of combat too. She literally stops the environments around her, and I thought that was fire. The idea of interacting with the world on that level, freezing time to your advantage, opens up many possibilities. Now, the only thing is, the way they showed it off, the ability kind of looks like an idle animation. Like something cool you can trigger but not actually use in meaningful ways. And I really hope that's not the case. I hope it's a real mechanic that you can use during exploration, maybe even tied to specific puzzles or quests. Imagine entire missions built around stopping time, that would be amazing. The fact that from what we saw, the ability works no matter where you are, regardless of location, time or weather, and just freezes everything, that is seriously impressive. They also showcased more characters, and some of them really had cool abilities. Like one of them literally performs what feels like a domain expansion, creating a field that weakens enemies and boosts your own strength. Another feature they showed off is the faction synergy. If you use certain characters alongside others of the same faction, they'll drop in automatically during battle to support you. And I think that's a great touch that adds flavor to team building and strategy. But it's not all perfect. There were still a few issues I noticed with the battles. Now, this might just be me, but one of the biggest issues I noticed is that the abilities feel kind of dull. And I don't mean mechanically, they work fine. I'm talking about their visual flair, the impact. When I'm fighting, I want to feel powerful. I want to feel like I'm wrecking enemies, like something big is happening with every move. But so far, with the character that they've shown us, that flair just isn't there. The abilities don't really explode on screen the way you'd expect. There's not enough flash, not enough style, nothing that really makes you feel like you're owning the battlefield. Now, to be fair, this could just be because of the specific character that they chose to showcase. Maybe later down the line, we'll get those high impact flashy abilities that really hit. But as of now, they're not just delivering that sense of raw power. That might change once we get our hands on the full game. Maybe it's just an early build, or maybe we haven't seen the strongest units yet. But if this ends up being a consistent issue throughout the whole roster, I really hope it's something that they address going forward. The same thing goes for the perfect dodge mechanic. Now, like I said earlier, adding perfect dodges is a big win for combat, no doubt about that. But I really think they need to push it a bit further with the animation. Right now, if you dodge an attack perfectly, your character just does their normal sprint animation with a slightly different color effect. And honestly, that's underwhelming. It works, but it doesn't feel satisfying. There is no impact, no moments where you're like, yeah, I nailed that. And yeah, I get it, it's a small thing, but at this point, in the current stage of the gacha genre, it's the small stuff that makes your game stand out. The big flashy features, we've seen them all in Genshin and Wuthering Waves. They've already raised the bar. There's not much left that's going to blow us away in a large scale. So now it's about polish, it's about the tiny details, smooth, stylish dodge animations, unique effects, impactful ultimates. These are the things that stick with players, that makes combat feel not just good but special. And I really think that if NTE focused on adding these touches, giving perfect dodges a distinct look, giving abilities more flair, the whole experience would feel way more engaging. That said, overall, I still like what they've done with the combat so far. Sure, there's still room for improvement, but compared to what we saw before, this is a solid step forward. It's not perfect yet, but it's definitely moving in the right direction. Hopefully they keep refining it and eventually reach a point where we can all feel satisfied with the gameplay. Now, the next thing they showcased was the game optimization, specifically how you interact with vehicles and things like police chases. And honestly, it was okay. I think because of the nature of this game, being a gacha game that's likely meant to appeal to a younger audience, we can't really expect things to get too violent or gritty, especially in how NPCs are treated. So yeah, where your character flashes a badge and the NPC willingly hands over their car, even though it looks super goofy, I get why they did it that way. For a game like this, it kind of makes sense. But I do think they could add a little more detail to make it feel more natural. Maybe the NPC asks a quick question or gives a line of dialogue before stepping out. Just something small to ground interaction a bit more. Now, for the police chase system, that is absolutely incredible. It works a lot like what you see in GTA. If you cause enough chaos on the streets, you start racking up heat, represented by a star system, and you can get up to 3 stars. Now, 1 star is relatively chill, nothing too serious, but once you hit 2 stars, things start getting wild. Drones start flying overhead, dropping bombs on you, and I thought that was super cool. It's a level of chaos that's just plain fun, and honestly, this kind of feature is perfect for downtime. Those moments in the game where there's not too much going on, you can just cause a bit of havoc and see how long you can outrun the law. Now, in the preview, they showed us up to 2 stars, but I'm guessing 3 stars will turn things up even more. Heavier police presence, more aggressive tactics, and just total mayhem. And I'm here for it. And that's not all. Another thing they reviewed in this section is just how much more interactive the world is. For example, you can steal from shops. That's another action that increases your heat level and draws police attention. It's a small thing, but again, a great addition for players who just want to rest around or stir up a little chaos. What I love about this is how it gives the world life outside of missions. A lot of open world games today fall into the same trap. Once you finish finish the main story, side quest, and endgame content. The world feels empty. There's nothing left to do but run around and admire the scenery. But from what I've seen in NTE, they're aiming to fix that. They're building a world where even when there is nothing structured going on, there is still stuff to do. Whether it's triggering police chases, stealing from shops, or just exploring and stirring up trouble, the world reacts to you. And on top of that, they're adding online racing with friends. That's a great co-op option. And just another way to stay engaged with the game. It adds more layers of interaction and makes the world feel even more dynamic. And honestly, if this keeps up, NTE might end up creating one of the most lived-in playable open worlds we've ever seen in the gacha space. And on top of all the world interaction, there's also the option to acquire properties. Now, this is a feature we've known about for a while, and to be honest, owning in-game houses or apartments has always felt a bit mad to me. But there was one part of that section in the preview that actually did catch my attention. They mentioned something called anomaly furniture, special items you can place in your property that unlock commissions. And if that means what I think it is, missions tied directly to specific furniture, that's actually a really cool idea. The thought of buying a particular item and suddenly getting access to a unique mission or event, that's a great way to make property ownership appealing to people like me who usually skips that kind of stuff. So now, whether you're into owning the place just for the vibe, or you're looking for something with more mechanical value, this system has something for you, and I think that's a smart move, giving players multiple reasons to engage with the same feature. Then there is the story, which I'm going to completely skip. And that's intentional. Stories are experienced in game, not in previews or summaries. Plus, they didn't really go deep into the narrative during the stream anyway, so there's not much to say. So that brings us to the final part of the video, and honestly, probably the most important part, the banner system. This is the part a lot of people are hyped about, and for good reason. Some folks are already saying this might be the best banner system we've seen in recent gacha games. So the banner system in NTE works more like a board game, which is a huge shift in the traditional gacha model. Normally, with enough currency, you can do a single pull or a 10 pull and hope for the best. But here, you roll a dice and you move a character across a board. Wherever your character lands, that's the item you get. So technically, there is no 10 pull, every roll is a single pull. And honestly, I don't really know how to feel about that yet. On one hand, it's a refreshing change. It's good to see someone trying something new with the gacha format, but on the other hand, it might slow things down and change the rhythm players are already used to. See, within this system, items are divided into B tier, A tier, and S tier, with S tier obviously being the rarest. Now, the biggest thing people are hyped about is that there is no 50-50 system. Every S tier pull is guaranteed. No coin flip, no heartbreak. That sounds amazing, but there's a catch that I feel people aren't really talking about. Yes, there's no 50-50, but that's only if you can actually land on an S tier space, and that's not guaranteed after a certain number of rolls. Instead, after 70 rolls, your chances of landing on an S tier starts to increase. You're not guaranteed an S tier character on your 70th or even 80th roll. You can keep going 90 or 100, maybe even beyond that if your luck is bad enough. So while it's technically better than a 50-50 system, it's not quite the pity system that people are used to. And I think that nuance is getting overlooked in the hype. That said, I'm not ready to say whether it's good or bad just yet. It's just one of those systems that we really need to try out ourselves before judging. So yeah, if you're unlucky, you could end up rolling way more than you expect. That's something worth keeping in mind. Now, something else they mentioned, and I think this is a pretty big deal, is the arcs. From what I understand, arcs are essentially the weapon system for S tier characters. And what's cool is that they said that most arcs will be obtainable in-game. So instead of needing to pull for every character's weapon, you can end them through gameplay or in various modes and events. That's actually a great move. It takes a bit of pressure off the banner system and makes the grind feel more rewarding. You can pull a character and then you can work towards their arc in-game, and I think that's a solid balance. So what do I think about Neverless to Everness as a whole? I think there is work to be done, a lot actually. The world needs more polish, the combat still has areas that could be pushed further, and there are still small systems across the board that needs refining. But at its core, I believe that there is a solid game here, and if they can nail the story, or at least give us something that doesn't feel like generic gacha filler, then we're in for something great, because right now, gacha stories are evolving fast. Some of the newer games are telling legitimately compelling emotional stories, so the bar is high right now. And I'm not asking for perfection, but I'm hoping NTE avoids being another forgettable plotline. That said, this is a game that I'm absolutely excited for. I'll be playing it when it drops, and if it's as good as it's shaping up to be, I'll definitely be covering it here on the channel. But what about you? Do you think NTE is worth the hype? Are there still changes that they need to make before launch? Let me know it all in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one.